it has been described as the worst ever NHS treatment scandal, and today the people who've been directly affected by it will start giving evidence to an official inquiry. I'm talking about the contaminated blood scandal and the investigation that's now looking into how the authorities responded and whether there was a cover-up. Thousands of people with haemophilia and other bleeding disorders are believed to have been infected with HIV and hepatitis viruses during the 70s and 80s, and many have since died. Now, one of those was Mike Dorricott from Zeller. He caught hepatitis through contaminated blood products and died in 2015. His daughter, Sarah Dorricott, joins us now. And I'm also joined by Jason Evans, the founder of Factor 8, the independent haemophilia group who'll be involved with the inquiry. We'll start with Sarah first. Sarah, good morning to you. I know you're not able to go to the inquiry itself, but if you could, what would you want to tell it?
I just want some justice, basically. We really feel, as a collective, that there has been a cover-up. We don't really feel that this has been ignorance. I think there's something more sinister about what has happened to the victims and the people infected and affected. There's been medical records going missing. There's been official documents that have been put into the National Archives that have, that we suspect that are incriminating.
I mean, whatever the outcome of this, it's sadly never going to bring back the loved ones that have been lost. What would you personally, though, like the outcome to be?
Personally, the outcome, my dad was quite an avid campaigner, so he was there with the best of them, lobbying MPs and trying to get answers. And I really feel like, as my family and we really just want answers. We want to know why this happened, and we feel like because his condition was so mild, he was only a mild haemophiliac. He didn't actually need daily treatment. He very, very rarely had treatment. So when he was infected, it was for routine dental surgery, and his doctors went against, his surgeons went against what his doctor's recommendations for his treatment, and they treated him with this infected blood concentrate when he would have normally have had cryoprecipitate, and he didn't actually need it. So it just raises suspicions, and my father knew this himself. He went through his medical files, and he was flagging up little parts about his treatments and things like that things didn't look quite right, and he knew there was something wrong, and he knew that he had almost been treated like a guinea pig. There was medical conditions that he was diagnosed with but not told about until many, many years later.
Okay, well, let's have a word now with Jason Evans, the founder of Factor 8. Jason, good morning. Your father died in 1993 after being infected with both hepatitis C and HIV from contaminated products. Is it in some way a relief for you now? This inquiry is now hearing from the people like yourself who were directly affected.
Well, good morning. Yes, that's right. My father was also a victim of this, and it's good to be on with Sarah as well, who's part of the Factor 8 group. And I have to say, I didn't know Sarah's father, but I am fully aware that he was a very avid campaigner and did a lot to probably get us to this point. I think it is very important that the inquiry is beginning today, and that victims will finally begin to give their testimony as to how they were infected with these factor concentrate products in the 70s and 80s that were supplied by the then subsidiary companies of the likes of Bayer, Baxter and Revlon Healthcare, who we hold just as accountable as the Department of Health for their role in this scandal.
How important is it that the inquiry will really listen to stories like yours, really take on board what you say to them, what you as individuals, what you as families have been through?
I think it's very important for the inquiry, and Sir Brian Langstaff himself has said that he'll be looking for trends in the witness statements, which is somewhat, I say somewhat, easily done in this inquiry because of the numbers of people involved. We've got 1,500 confirmed haemophiliac deaths from factor concentrates, the largest loss of life incident in this country since World War II, believe it or not. And so they'll be looking for trends on things like, as Sarah was saying, people not being informed about the things they've been infected with, people not being asked for their consent to testing in many cases. And so these are things that, for these specific things, there may not be on paper evidence for. But if you've got 1,000 people all saying the same thing, it's probably going to be the truth.
Sarah, given all of this happened in the 70s and 80s, do you realistically think that the people who might have been responsible can be held to account?
I don't know if they can necessarily be held to account for this, but if we can get anywhere near the truth and we can uncover what happened, then that might bring some closure to some of the families and to the infected and affected. I know that nothing could bring back the loss of a loved one, and I know that there could be no justice for those that have gone through so much emotional turmoil in their life, but it might bring some closure to some people.
Jason, is that an opinion you share that Sarah's just put forward there, that it might bring a little bit of closure to what you've all been through?
Absolutely. I think it would bring some form of closure if both the pharmaceutical companies and the government did what we want them to do, which is to accept liability for the manufacture, importation and distribution of Factor VIII and 9-concentrate products in the 70s and 80s. We strongly allege they were negligent, perhaps corporate manslaughter. Some people say murder. I'm not, there's a lot of accusations that are thrown around, but whichever one you go with, they are liable. And I think once they accept that, there will be some form of closure for people to feel that they don't have to go on fighting for the rest of their lives.
Okay, thank you. That's Jason Evans, the founder of Factor VIII, the independent haemophilia group. And also we heard from Sarah Dorricott, whose father, Mike Dorricott from Sedbergh, caught hepatitis through contaminated blood products.